You are one of the few Democrats who engages one-on-one with President Trump, and he recruited you for the Republican Party. And tell me that story as this happened when you met with him.
I think, and as I told the reporter, talking about issues like overregulation and trade, and, he just said, well, you sound like a Republican, join the Republican Party.
And your response?
Well, my response was, give me the XM Bank. So
would you?
He's got a wonderful sense of humor.
Would you join the Republican Party if he gave you the XM Bank? Would you?
Well, that's an unfair question. I just want I want the XM Bank because I think that it is important to manufacturing in my state. It is important to workers. And I continually go back to those 250,000 jobs. The latest job report you saw, some trending downward. We don't know if that's going to be a glitch or if we'll see some seasonal adjustment. We don't know what's going to happen. But when you look at where we are right now, if we are going to grow as an economy, if we're going to reach the growth potential that I know that we can, we will only do it if we're exporting. If we're just moving money around this country, that's not new wealth creation. That's not bringing new wealth and right now, ironically, 17 was the worst trade deficit year we've had with China. And I'm not somebody who spends a lot of time on trade deficits. I think it's important to pay attention and watch, but our trade deficit in comparison with the overall amount of our economy is a question or is a factoid that we all need to kind of focus on when we're looking at trade deficits. But we have got, as we have focused on trying to harmonize our tax policy, we've got to have the institution of the XM Bank up and running to be competitive, not just with China, but with France, with Canada, with Mexico, with all of the other 82 countries that have a credit agency like this. And the irony is, it hasn't cost the taxpayers a dime. In fact, it's paid dividends to the taxpayers. And so there's no logic. There's no economic logic. The only impediment is ideology. And ideology frustrates me when it comes in the face of that persistent, nagging problem called facts.
People like Senator Sanders, as you mentioned, Senator Elizabeth Warren, they criticized heavily the Democrats who supported that banking bill. And they used a lot of tough rhetoric, Senator, saying you're supporting big banks and whatnot. Is that problematic to the Democratic Party, especially in a midterm year?
You know what? I think that when we expect political parties to walk in lockstep, we get the gridlock that we have right now. And I think any kind of dialogue, I think people are entitled to their opinion. They represent their state. I'm entitled to my opinion. And it's my job to persuade 60 members of Congress that I'm right and they're wrong. And that's what we did. So, to me, it's all about the process. And I don't criticize anyone for what they're thinking or where they're headed with any of this. But what I do is I do try and correct the record, make the case, do my advocacy. And many times when you do that, whether for me it was opening up oil exports to the production that we do in the lower 48 to exportation, whether it's looking at carbon capture sequestration, which would benefit not only coal companies but other industrial facilities, but also create technology that's going to lead to reducing carbon emissions in this country, whether it's looking at a bank regulatory bill that can balance the interests of small and keep the regulation of the largest institutions intact. That's all win-win. And when we lead with facts and we lead with advocacy on those facts, you can win still in Washington. And so I turn out the noise that criticizes on either side and say, I'm going to just keep walking through that because I got a goal to do. And the goal is policy. It's not political debate. The goal is to get a policy that's going to move the country forward. And that's how I feel about the XM Bank. There is no good reason not to get a quorum. There's no good reason not to authorize and to continue this export finance agency. And when China says we're going to unravel our export finance agency, I will be first in line saying the time has come to unravel the EXIM Bank.